So I bought the huge Horizon Forbidden West strategy guide. It has like 650 plus pages with tips, but also includes interviews with some key developers on the game that reveal some very interesting behind the scenes stuff. It, for example, tells us about some special gear that did not make it into the Forbidden West when the initial state of play reveal was planned, and this really shows you how much things can move. And I also want to share a very interesting fact about mounts that you maybe did not know. Of course, if you like the Horizon content here on the channel, then leaving a like would really help me out. And let's go. But first, the sponsor of this video, Bloodline Heroes of Lithas. A brand new free-to-play RPG you can check out right now via the link in the video description. New legends will be born is the tagline, because Bloodline namely has a very interesting twist on the hero collecting gameplay. Because yes, there are many legendary champions to get for your combat party, like Werewolf Lycan, that just like the other champions in the game has both a male and female variant, and what you can do is have one champion marry another champion to create children with combined powers. Like an orc and a demon gives the orc wings so it can fly, while if you combine the orc with a demigod, they get thunder powers. So there are many combinations to check out, but not all will work. Next to that, you have a kingdom you can build, equipment you can collect and craft, and way more. And as part of the launch, you can have an heir of both the Dragonborn and Demigod for free. So totally check the game out via the special link in the video description or the QR code you see on screen. And also use my gift code to get $20 worth of extra rewards, but you gotta be fast. So thanks to Bloodline for sponsoring the video, and now let's get back into it. After I was able to override the Claw Strider by completing the Iota Cauldron, I never really used other mounts in the game. Not only because I always wanted to mount a raptor, go figure, but also because it's of course a really solid combat companion when aggressive and by putting on Machine Master gear. But I always thought that it was kinda slow, like it's hard to compare with other mounts while just playing the game, and it can be hard to get a sense of the speed when you're like riding a pretty large machine. Well, in the strategy guide, the speed for the Claw Strider is noted as 8 meters per second, while both the Bristleback and the Charger run at 13 meters per second. So the other mounts are 62.5% faster than the Claw Strider, and we tried it in the game as well. We rode the same distance in the exact same location, and you will see that both the Bristleback and the Charger do it in 46 seconds, while the Claw Strider is at 1 minute and 14 seconds. It really made me question my Claw Strider mount pick, although I can of course use the Sunwing for transport and then the Claw Strider as a pet. That's likely how I will do it. In the developer interviews in the final pages of the strategy guide, game director Matthijs de Jonge noted that they knew the flying mount was one of the most requested features, and they always wanted to make sure that it felt earned, so that it was like a big reward we would unlock. And I was lucky, I did not know the Sunwings would be mountable. There were areas though that I could not access where I was like, how am I going to reach this without a flying mount? But then when the moment in the main story came, near the end of the game, I was like clapping, I was like playing with a smile on my face. They really did it. My favorite moment in the game for sure. Well, now we learned that it was also the most challenging feature to figure out. They did not want to sacrifice any details or content to add flying, and they of course had to make sure that all the activities, including the missions, would still work on the back of a Sunwing. You probably still notice that in some areas of the game it's harder to summon the mount or get picked up, but overall I think they really nailed it. And the fact that you can also use the Poolcaster to get back on the bird and how seamless that is really awesome. They overall note that it takes a lot of effort to make a mount, so that they have to choose wisely. And reading this also makes me think that we will likely not be seeing new flying or regular mounts in Forbidden West, even if there's like a DLC. Although, I would love to be wrong, of course. I did wish we would see the State of Play mission with Errant in the final game. Like many pre-launch gameplay reveals used for Sony games do end up in the final product. The one from Ghost of Tsushima comes to mind, which ended up being a side mission. And also the Days Gone pre-launch gameplay was in the final game. But no freeing Errant from Regala her rebels was not something we could experience. But what we now learned in this guide is that they started working working on this demo in early January 2020 with the aim to air it in May 2020, so 1 year before we actually got to see it. They put it in the freezer so they could focus on the game instead, as these demos take 4 to 6 months to make, and that means less time spent on the development of the game. But yeah, I think this also shows that Forbidden West was likely planned for like a first half of 2021 release, but that it of course got pushed many times thanks to COVID. They also did consider the idea of carrying over player progression as well as decisions made in the first game, but there would just be too many variables to get like on the quality level that they want, and it would also not really fit in people's schedule. I personally did not mind this, as there weren't a lot of choices in the first game anyway, although it was of course weird to see Nil again if you killed him during that side mission in Zero Dawn. On the other hand, I'm happy that he's still alive, and he's also one of the favorite characters of the writing team by far, according to Ben McCaw, so we likely haven't seen the last of him. The only thing I found strange regarding the progress was the lack of a good explanation as to why Aloy did not have the items from Zero Dawn. Like, sure, Farrell asks about it at the start of the game, with Aloy then saying,
"Yeah, I ran into some trouble on the way here. Lost a lot of my gear."
And this is also the reason they gave in the strategy guide, that she traveled far and wide to in the end find the Farsenet base at the start of Forbidden West, but that she lost a lot of gear along the way. But yeah, playing Forbidden West now, I carry way more than I ever did in Zero Dawn, and I'm traveling quite a lot. I think it would have been cooler if we saw an actual fight or something that caused Aloy to lose all her gear, so it would make more sense that she's happy to get a crappy tripcaster a few hours later. And speaking of that Farsenet's base, the tutorial, it went through a lot of iterations. They mentioned first that the opening mission was a series of encounters with the Slitherfang, but that it left very little room for onboarding. So they changed it to what we have now, introducing players to the Odyssey project, for if you missed it in Zero Dawn or are playing for the first time. I do think it was like my least favorite part of the game. I felt 2 hours was way too long for this linear level. I also thought it was too much of an information overload this early into the game, especially for people that did not touch Horizon for 5 years. But I get that they had to like tell people about this to understand later twists. And overall, the Slitherfang was the most difficult machine to make, and I think we can all see why, next to the Slaughter Spine, by the way, thanks to the incredible amount of abilities that machine has. I found this one very interesting. They also had plans for special gear tools that did not make it into the game, namely a spear you could throw at a machine or scenery and then use to climb up, or they had plans for a shield that you could carry and then block incoming attacks. Maybe kind of like the shields we now see from the rebel captains. Both had issues with overcomplicated controls though, so they were abandoned at an earlier stage, but maybe they will revisit these ideas. That would be cool. We of course now have the tripcaster with the shield, but I sadly never use it because you cannot shoot through the shield and it gets very quickly destroyed by machines. And speaking of machines, not sure if we will see the Sawtooth or the Trampler in Forbidden West in future content. They namely note that they really wanted to keep as much Zero Dawn machines as possible, and that the ones that did not return were due to the fact that there was already a similar machine to fight, which is of course the case with the Sawtooth and the Ravager. Ravager, you could argue, is more interesting thanks to the gun you can also use against it. And the rollerback would then be similar to the Trampler, right? But I do miss the Trampler, like hitting that very nice weak spot, which would then set the machine on fire for an unlimited amount of time. It never really got old. I really enjoyed seeing the Corruptor again. That was a nice surprise. We can of course also fight them in the arena, but having the Deathbringer come back in some sort of form as like a mini boss in potential DLC would also be awesome, because that's totally a completely different boss fight compared to the Corruptor. So again, I hope they still find a way to bring them back again for DLC. It would be a nice like change of pace next to potential new machines, although Dennis, the combat lead, did note in the strategy guide that it's easier said than done. It was, by the way, never the plan to have the full city of Meridian explorable in Forbidden West. The focus was always on the Spire, but I for one moment did think that they would have us explore like a small part of the Zero Dawn map, especially after pulling up the menu during that section of the game. I was really like, Are they doing it? But yeah, that was never the plan, sadly. Although we get to experience the Zero Dawn map in VR with the Call of the Mountain VR game. We, by the way, have a ton of new info on that game. And I also went in depth on potential DLC, a third game, multiplayer, a second project by Guerrilla Games. Just a ton in a previous video that you can watch by clicking on the screen. Subscribe, of course, for everything Horizon. A like on the video would really help me out. And also check out Bloodline via the link, of course, in the video description. I will speak to you soon. Goodbye.